Thank you.
Okay, so our document up. Doing the Red Scare. What do we do about this? I have a whip for this. Okay, so first thing I want to know is what we know about the Cold War already. So what do we know about the Cold War?
It was an arms race between Russia and the United States.
Okay, yeah, it is that. What else?
Yep, there you go.
Involves communism, okay. What else do we know?
They're cold for one another.
Okay. I would say more they're hot towards one another. But what else? What else?
Started during World War II.
It started at the end of World War II, yeah, during World War II. Okay, is the Cold War, does it have bombs and people, get shot?
No.
No. The Cold War is a war of words, of spies and information, but not as much of killing each other on the spot. Now, I'm sure they kill people, they just didn't do it, like as in stand in the line, we're going to shoot you kind of thing. Okay, anything else? It's already out there. Just so. Okay, so he said that it started during World War II. Do you know what started the Cold War? Do you know what started it? So we have no idea what started it. Okay, well that'd be a good place to start if we're going to learn about the Cold War. Let's start at the beginning then. Okay, so at the end of World War II, you've got the countries coming in and liberating the places that were under Nazi control, right? So the armies are coming in, they're getting rid of the Nazis that are left, running them out, shooting them, whatever. Russia's going to take the side that's closest to it, so the Eastern European side, and France, Great Britain, and the United States are going to take the Western Europe side, and they're going to clear out the Nazis. At the end of the war, the area that they cleared, so our western part and Russia's eastern part, what was supposed to happen to those countries at the end of the war? Who did they belong to? Well, that's who they're going to end up belonging to. Eastern Europe's going to end up belonging to Russia, but Poland should have belonged to the Polish. Czechoslovakia should have belonged to the Czechs. The Slovakians, either way. But it's not what happened. It's not what happened. Russia, when they cleared the Nazis out of that area, they kept the land. They gave it back, but didn't ever give it back. They set up their own governments in there. What type of government does Russia have? Communist. Do we like communists? No, it's the opposite of us, right? So that wasn't okay. So when they set up the communist governments in that area, that caused all the Western countries like us to freak out. Because what's happening? What's happening if they're setting up communist governments there? What's happening? It's spreading, expanding. Communism is spreading, expanding, like a disease, a plague. Yeah, exactly. All right, along with this, something else happens that makes us all freak out. China has a communist revolution. China goes communist. This is when it happens. China goes communist. That made everybody freak out. Okay, so if we're looking at this, we look at it and go, okay, so Eastern Europe is being made communist because Russia took it over. China is done communist because they believe in the same ideas. The party won there. It's a huge country with a large population. it seems like a huge threat, does it not? I mean, you've got more and more people ending up being communists. So this is where you get the era for the Red Scare. Red Scare being communism being red. What's really interesting is that we're scared because of the technology we have. How did we end the war with Japan? Atomic bomb. What if we're not the only country with the nuclear power? And a nuclear war. So who else is going to end up with that? Russia. Russia's first. China's way late. Russia's first. So Russia ends up with nuclear power and nuclear bombs. Oh no! That's where you get that Bert the Turtle and Duck and Cover videos. Yeah, y'all saw those. But if you think about that, that's the thing that we're scared of. We're scared of those two things combined. That communism is spreading and that they've now got nuclear power. But the Red Scare isn't as much about foreign countries as it is about us. Here at home. So while the Cold War is the global view and everything that's going on in the entire world, and you've got, let's see, you've got Star Trek, which I told him, Mr. Smithy, I reminded him that the Klingons are the Russians, the United Federation is the U.S. You've got the Romulans are the Chinese, and the Vulcans are the Japanese. That's what you basically got set up. He's writing about the world history right there in Star Trek. In fact, when I learned this stuff on the Cold War, my teacher actually made us watch Star Trek.
So we can watch Star Trek?
They actually made us watch 4 episodes of it. I don't think so. I'll tell you what though, if you can go find those things, if you can go find like the episode, there's some episodes that are really good. They show this. They show that Cold War stuff. You can find those. It's all the ones with William Shatner. So it's going to be William Shatner. If you can find those, you can write it up and tell us how it shows it. I bet Mr. Smithy and I'd be persuaded to give extra points. See, if you can do it, I'm totally honored that because it's a really good paper if you can do that. But
wasn't all the original series William Shatner though?
yes.
Except the heart.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Captain Pike in the first one. Okay. So let's talk about the Red Scare, McCarthyism, and this stuff here in the United States. I'm going to take the U.S. part of it really quick, which is not as easy. Usually Mr. Smithy takes the U.S. part of it. We swapped roles, Mr. Smithy. You took the global view yesterday, and I took the U.S. view.
Exactly. Unusual, isn't it?
It is. All right, so let's go through. I've given you a bunch of the history on the Cold War and its beginnings and how it started. I will tell you that there are a bunch of things that are going to go into it. The U.S. policy that's going to set us up for the next, well, still to somewhat to this point, we still use this policy, is going to be called containment. You need to know that. You need to know containment, like contain something. That's a policy that we're still going to use. We still, to this day, use the policy of containment. We're using it currently with ISIS and radical Islamic groups. We want to contain them where they are. We cannot beat them, so we will hold them in one place. It's kind of like coming to a stalemate in chess. No, this is in the notes, you'll have it. The word that's in here is containment. There it is, containment. All of my notes always go in, not all of it. But I would know containment what it does. So we wanted to contain the spread of communism, and eventually it's going to be called the Iron Curtain. That's going to lay between the Western world and the Eastern world. So you're going to have that policy of containment that's holding them to one spot. They're trying not to let it spread. And that idea of containing them and not letting it spread is where you get the issues with the Red Scare. And you guys, for you, it's a lot of this stuff you can relate back to 9/11 and the time right after 9/11. And I know that you're too young for that, but your parents would remember it, so you might talk to them about it and ask them some questions. But a lot of this stuff that we're talking about shows up again. Some of the policies show up again, some of the same names for things show up again. It's really interesting. But during the Red Scare, you're having that worry that communism is invading the United States. That your next door neighbor could be a communist secretly. And you don't know it. That TV show, The Americans. You seen that show?
Yeah.
Anybody seen it? Okay. So I haven't watched. I've watched like one episode. But that's basically what it is. The sleeper cells that you see, like if you watch NCIS or any of those things, they show up as sleeper cells. In this, it's basically what you're looking at. They're worried about things like that. We worry about it still today, right? We still have those issues. We worry about Islamic groups being here in the United States, and we don't know that they're here, and they're going to, do something else to the airports or to whatever it happens to be that they're going to blow up or destroy. And we've got people that still, talk out. The one that's for the Red Scare, the person that was the loudest voice in the Red Scare was a guy named Joseph McCarthy. He's a Republican from Wisconsin, so he's a cheesehead, right? He's a Republican, and he's going to be in charge of a committee that's called this. You might want to write it down. House Un-American Activities Committee. Their initials or acronym is HUAC. So, House Un-American Activities Committee. All right. This committee is going to look at U.S. citizens and try to eliminate communist activity in the United States. To equate what this committee does during this time period, it's the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, kind of like that. If you know somebody, point them out, and we'll grind them into. Or the Salem witch trials. Or if you read books, Harry Potter, the wizarding thing where they're pulling in all the wizards because they think they might be Death Eaters. She actually based that part of the book off of the Red Scare. So you've got this committee, and they're not going to follow legal appropriateness. They might pull you in without a trial, without any charges, and jail you for quite a period of time. And they can do this because you are being jailed as a traitor to the country, which has different rules. Which is also why we have Camp X-Ray down in Cuba. We still use some of those same rules. They also would do things like, say, Anastasia's outside waiting on her bus. She's standing out there, and some guy walks up to her and says, "Hey, do you know if they have this in the Jones Center?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think so, but you might ask at the front desk." Somebody sees her talking to this guy, and the next day she and her family and everyone she's friends with are pulled in on threat of being communist. And that's the United States. It's not a foreign country. That's here. And it really did happen that way. And not only that, but she could be held for weeks and weeks and weeks with no attorney, no criminal charges, nothing. She's just being detained on, the idea that she might be a communist. Yes, you communist, you. She happened to be the one that was closest, so
So mean to pick on me.
Yeah, well. So McCarthy is going to be the one that's leading this charge, and he's definitely going to pick on people. Mostly, the people he picks on don't agree with him. They have different political views, different values than him, like family values than him. They might come from a different country that he dislikes a great deal, but a lot of this is going to come out of fear. and he's going to use that fear to make a witch hunt to get rid of his political rivals. Does that make sense? So if you oppose him, he claims you're a communist, and you go to jail and disappear for a little while. It reminds me of a guy named Stalin in a country named Russia. You know, just a thought.
Yeah, Serbia, smart people.
Does, yeah. In fact, one of the first groups that they go after are movie stars. Movie stars. So they're people that have enough money, right? Movie stars have money. They're usually open-minded on things. They're not generally going to agree with his, pulling random people off the street and going, "You're a communist," and putting them in jail. They're not going to do that. I mean, okay, so Tom Cruise, he's the Scientologist, right? He does Scientology, which is a weird religion, right? And a bunch of people have followed him.
Pretty cool.
It's weird, it's different, It's one of those things that people have followed him doing, but until he did it, that religion really didn't have a big following. So they have sway with people, right? So they could go, "Oh, look, this person's a communist," and drag them in. And it could be something as small as what Anastasia did. They had a conversation with him at a party once. I like this one. The head of Girl Scouts, the lady that was the head of Girl Scouts, was taken in by the committee because her husband had a friend who happened to be a communist. They didn't even know that. But she was pulled in, and Girl Scouts was put on as a possible communist threat.
What?
Oh, you're laughing, but right after 9/11, both Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts were put on the threat list as possible threats to the U.S. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. Right after 9/11, they were put on that list. Terroristic groups. They were listed on the terroristic groups. Craziness, they were only on there about 6 weeks, but they were still on it. 6 weeks. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts,
Little kids are gonna blow up big ass.
Well, you have to think about it logically, though. Hitler spent his time with Hitler's youth, right? He spent a lot of time and energy trying to get them to believe a certain way in Hitler's youth, so it kind of makes sense that way. I disagree with it, but it still kind of makes a weird kind of sense. The Red Scare, though, you just have to, it's hysteria. It's this, "Oh my God, the sky is falling, the sky is falling," that kind of idea.
Chicken Little.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
You are
And
Chicken Little.
McCarthy's the one who's screaming the loudest. I want you to see some posters from the time period. So this is propaganda from the period, all except for the Eminem one. The Eminem one's just fun. That came out last year. You remember when M&M's had their contest for which color, vote for the color, your favorite color? Blue won, evidently, they looked at that first block. But Red's one was "The Revolution is Now." And it's
Just for fun.
It's that communist one that they're doing that kind of communist idea. But here, these are actual ones, the Red Menace. They didn't want to name communism. If they gave it its name, it had powers. So what they did was they called it the Red Menace. They also called it some other things like that.
Fishy friends.
Seriously, remember Stalin and Fishy Friends, turn them in? Remember? That's one of those things that he had. Here's a political cartoon from the time talking about the United States, just kind of floating up on it. Report all suspected communist activity, and this guy obviously is meant to look sinister. This one I really like. This one's on an opposite. Who are you inviting in? It says a fallout shelter will guard you against nuclear radiation, but it can't protect you from the enemy within. It's got Dracula standing there. I mean, it's like they're bloodsuckers and they're going to come and get you in the night. Which is exactly what they wanted. I have links in here that you can go look at on your own if you want to. And then McCarthy. All right, so McCarthy is going to go on his rampage for, 6 years? Is that about how long he's in there? Enough to get him reelected. And he's going to go on this rampage, and he's going to pull thousands of people under suspicion. Not hundreds, thousands of people under suspicion for communism.
Hello.
And a great number of them, there are a good number of people that were innocent that were sent to jail. And he's eventually going to attack the wrong group of people. He's eventually going to make a couple of powerful enemies.
Edward R. Murrow happens to be one of them.
Yeah, well, the military. He attacked the military. So he went after some high-ranking military officials. He got his position because he said he currently knew 200 and something people that work for the State Department that were communists. It wasn't true. They were having a group meeting that they met, and they were various different groups of the government, and he accused them all of being communists. Well, he's going to do a lot of very bad things to our civil rights and our civil liberties, and he's going to take a lot of them away because he's doing it under the guise of enemy combatants or treason against the government. And eventually a news program called See It Now is going to attack back. And he's not going to even get the private trials that most of the communists had. His is going to be trial by press. He is going to be completely destroyed in the press. So he loses all power and all pretty much, thoughts of being worth anything in the Senate. After this, his committee, though, however, continues to exist. To this day, that committee, although it's under different names and it's become a department of the government, his committee is still out there. The committee that looks at the United States for terrorists. Today, the largest committee, the largest group that does that today is Homeland Security. That's the one that came in after 9/11. Before that, we kind of backed away from it a little bit, but it was still there. But Homeland Security, that is definitely their job. Still Homeland Security? Oh yeah, they're the largest department in the government today. There's several groups take on this task. The CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and then of course Homeland Security. They all take on looking at homegrown terrorists. And there is some concern with that. There are homegrown terrorists. Timothy McVeigh, that did the Oklahoma City bombing, homegrown. The bombing at the Olympics in Atlanta a few years ago, Boston, there are a bunch of them that are homegrown. There's more than one Boston bomb.
Well, yeah, I know. I thought it was a group of Russians.
That one was. The last one was. Not the last one. There's several bombings in Boston.
Well, I thought you were talking about that.
No, not the last one. No, there was one, it was like in the 80s. It was bombing there. There are several different things that have come through. A lot of them have their own various agendas that they're trying to promote. But that's what they do. That's what these committees are set up to do. One of the interesting things that you need to realize is that these committees have tremendous amounts of power. And it's almost scary power. Under the 9/11 laws, they can tap your phone for 30 days. They can listen to your phone calls for 30 days before they have to get a warrant. Now, if they use any of it against you, they have to have a warrant to use it. But they can tap your phone without having a warrant for 30 days. They have a 24-hour cooling off period, and then they can tap it again. Under the Red Scare, under this McCarthyism, this committee actually started that. It was 15 days with a 48-hour cooling off period, and then another 15 days. How do you do it? Very easily. Cell phones and everything.
I don't call anyone though.
Well, all your text message, all your data, everything that you do on Google, on any of the search engines, all of that is subject to US government. If it goes across our lines, if it goes across US lines, it's subject to the US government.
Well, that's nice.
So,
What if they tapped your phone and all you were doing was pointing flash?
well, you have to realize that they randomly will tap people for no reason other than to see what's going on in that area.
No.
Well, not even that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that comes from this. Oh, the really cool stuff that comes from this time period, some of the really, really cool stuff. Hell, Hydra made me think of it. Captain America. Captain America, right after the scientist gets shot, and Captain America chases that guy through the city, and he pulls that tooth out and crunches it, the cyanide tooth. Those actually existed. Those really were true. They actually existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to be careful which side, because usually that tooth, so that it wasn't easy to get to, you didn't chew on it a whole lot. But there are other things. There's a museum there's a museum that's really cool. It's the Cold War Museum in Washington, D.C. I like this museum. I've been to it. If you look at it, when you walk up to the museum, it doesn't look like a museum. It's meant to not look like one.
So what does it look like?
A bank.
Oh, bank.
It was meant to look like another building because it's actually where activities were taking place, spy activities were taking place during the Cold War. It was one of our housing sets for American spies that were coming in, bringing information in. And so they've converted it into a Cold War museum, and it has tons of cool things like, you know, James Bond kind of things. It looks like James Bond museum, it really does. Except they're real things. My favorite is the pen that shoots acid, but today you can buy one. You can still buy these things on the internet, and they'll shoot water. But theoretically, you can put anything else in it you wanted, right? And a camera that shot bullets.
They shot the bullets though.
You click the shutter and it shot bullets out of the lens. I was like, that's pretty awesome.
I read about
Yeah.
I want that.
But there's a lot of really cool stuff. If you want to, you can actually see some of the exhibits. You can actually see some of the exhibits in this museum. They're online. I will tell you, if you get a chance to go, it costs a little bit to go in. I don't think it was really expensive. My friend and I went. But you might spring for the money to go in. It's not a huge museum, but the stuff in it is really darn cool. They have like actual telegrams that were sent between spies. And they decipher them for you. They have a bunch of little crazy things that they had. My favorites were those two, but then there was also the one that looked like a. Do you remember Mr. Gadget? Remember that?
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Oh my God.
He had like, they had like these pants that had like weird things in them, and a jacket that had weird. It was weird, and I just remember thinking that it looked like Inspector Gadget, his little suit that he had, because they had it on there, and then they showed where the things. Yeah, they had these little things that they showed where the outlines of things went, and I just remember thinking that the guy dressed in that looked like Inspector Gadget because he had so much stuff in his trench coat and his suit. It was kind of crazy. Yeah. So fun stuff like that. Once the Carpenter's out, once he pretty much loses prominence, the Red Scare doesn't go away. It just kind of gets on the back burner. It kind of isn't as vocal. It's actually, I won't say it's suppressed. I will say that it continues. It's just not in the press. Yeah, it continues. It's just not in the press. Well, I mean, they're still going to capture people that they think are suspected communists. You're just not going to hear about it. It stops being that, you know, that show trial and everybody knows about it. It still goes on. It's just you don't hear it. And I don't know which one is better. But it's still, I mean, it's still going on. I mean, you still see some of this stuff too with the 9/11 stuff. A lot of the 9/11 laws remind me a huge amount of the Red Scare stuff. I mean, today, if I go to the airport, I'm the prime target as a terrorist. I would be a prime target as a terrorist, to be a terrorist. If I was a female traveling alone, I generally only take a carry-on bag. I don't carry a big suitcase with me. I don't need it. They're going to pull me aside. They're going to do the whole rigmarole. They're going to check my suitcase, extra, and everything. Because I'm most likely to be a terrorist. Because that's, I don't have a whole lot to, evidently I'm single female, I don't have a whole lot to lose. So, if I travel with my husband, I never have a problem.
Didn't you say it's like because you're
Oh, I always get extra harassment because she's an FBI agent. But that's usually when I'm applying for visas, like to China. Like when I wanted to go to China, the group that I was going with, it took us 7 extra weeks off of the 3 for us to get our visas. So just because they were doing extra background checks on everybody that was going with me. Plus all the people that were meeting in China, she had to turn over a list.
What do you mean, complete stranger?
Well, we did, but EFTers is going to have to do the same thing when I go to China. They have to turn over a list of people that they're given. I already told our guy that. All right. There's some media links at the end if you're really interested in this. It's a good topic. It's lots of fun. There's lots of crazy stuff in here. There's my resource sets, and then if you want to know more, there's some other things in here that are pretty fun and cool. So if you're interested in this and you like it, there's that. But I want to show you a video. Mr. Smithy and I found it when we were looking at the Bikini Atoll. And it's going to show the number of atomic bombs that were set off in the world from 45 to 98. Okay, I want you to watch this, and I want you, when you think about it in terms of the other countries that are opposite us, that we don't trust, that have atomic bombs and where they're setting them off and what happens. I want you to see it. It's really interesting. This one is the fast version. There's another one that takes like 15 minutes. This is the slow one, or this is the fast one. It only takes 5 minutes. But I'm going to show you here. This is the year, this is the month, this is the country, the number of bombs, total number of bombs in the world. So that was our first test. We're the only one with nuclear power at the moment, with nuclear weapons. That's our 2 bombs in Japan. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now here we're going to go global. So here goes the months, ramping up. All the flashes, that's the Marshall Islands, by the way. So far, it's just us, right? There comes Russia. You're going to see the Cold War. I mean, you can see this come across as the Cold War. That's showing off and then showing off.
Oh, man.
That's Britain. No, they're different colors, so watch. So Britain's purple.
Well,
They're blue.
Of course they do it in Australia.
They're not going to do it at home.
I think we used to do it the same place over and over.
Yeah, we do a lot of our testings there. We have a missile range there.
us it didn't even
Okay, I want you to notice how many there are in the world already. Here comes France, they're going to be green, they're going to go to Ocean Africa.
Michael Bay.
Oh, that's
Honestly.
holy crap.
The sad part is that we do win.
America.
Like, do you see all these
How much money did they spend this last
That's a bunch of
I'm sure you'll find out.
I know, right?
That would,
There's another one.
that would crazy dangerous.
Okay, yeah, so here's China down here.
Ah.
China's yellow.
Yeah, China's yellow.
Well, look at America's.
I want you to notice how many are going off though. This is the height of the Cold War though. This is the height of the Cold War. So this is the worst of it.
1,000.
No, we have 600.
Who's doing next?
It's over 9,000.
Yep, India, let's see, I know India joining soon.
I think that,
Well, they won't show Iran.
I think that.
No, they're only gonna go to 98.
Oh, there's that's Mexico. There's Mexico.
What?
That Mexico.
I said I like to blow up the bombs.
Yeah, I can
Oh, there is 1 nuclear bomb.
I like to blow up the bombs.
How did we not
Yeah.
blow it up?
At the end of this, it's going to show you each country individually, and it's going to show you where the nuclear radiation is left behind. So the spots that we have made unlivable or should not be livable by our radiation.
Look at that one country. They just have like one bomb exploding.
Yeah, that's fun though.
India, you're doing good.
You're doing good.
We're calling you.
No, that's
Holy crap! Other than Japan, it's like the worst. You get the most nuclear bombs. What in the world?
Okay, so if you're not paying attention, you should be. So we've still got 10 years left. Yeah, we're almost to 1,000 atomic bombs we set off for 17 years.
It's over 9,000.
Crap! No one wants to be alone.
Can we reach to
How many areas in Nevada, Arizona are like?
What in the world?
India's just one.
We're the worst people ever.
I think we should.
Notice that there's a cooling off period here. Notice in the 90s, the early 90s, there's a cooling off period where you see very few. It's mostly China checking theirs out, and a couple that are from France that are doing theirs to make sure they've got it.
Where's France?
China's
Look at
the-
India.
you look at the colors.
Michael
That's
Bay.
Mexico, who's the pop?
No.
And who's that?
Oh, yay! We have 3 more.
Oh, Afghanistan.
Okay, so this is, they're gonna show you by country. So now they're showing you by country, and they're gonna leave the radiation on the map.
Ours is gonna be short. Oh, Jesus.
Good God.
Everywhere.
We're killing it on America.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're our
wait,
friends.
wait.
So watch Russia. Watch what Russia does. They spread theirs out.
Oh, gosh, right.
It's beautiful.
And then ours. And here's ours.
And then us.
I want you to look at our spot though.
Holy crap.
So, in the course of those years, you have 2,053 atomic bombs that were set off, and that stopped in 1998.
Wow.
So, we have to think about that. That was a long time ago.
Our budget was